Hi, everybody. How is everybody doing today? I think it's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Did we make it to the middle of the week and hump day? Welcome to the Lifeboat and welcome to Blessed to Crochet. I'm glad to have you all here. And I kind of picked this topic today because I think we've all had one of those days, one of those weeks, one of those months, one of those years, haven't we all? Where it's like everyone's like, "What happened to you in 2013?" Hi, Kristen. Hi, Sandy. We do some roll count. Hi, Stir Us. So I welcome everybody in. So 2013 for me was one of those years that if I had to go back and repeat my life over from 2010 to 2024, I probably wouldn't repeat 2013 if I had a choice. And I didn't have the connection that I have come to just rely on here on Blessed to Crochet and the boat. And I wish I'd had it. But I can tell you from somebody that has been through that, run to where you have your connection points. Run to those connections that you have made. This whole YouTube thing, people are, how can you make connection points? How can you make friends on YouTube? Well, you can. And you can make those connections point. Hi, my other's keeper. You can. And let's run to those. When you're having one of those days, one of those weeks, one of those months, one of those years. If you sit there like me that came on the lifeboat and said, "I'm sorry to dump," don't be afraid to dump in these places. Sometimes we have fun, but other times we need to have a place we can go and say, "I'm having a really difficult day or a week or a month or a year." So in 2013, it started. Those that know that I have raised a child with autism, and she's talked about this on My Other's Keeper as well. She had a marker in 2012 for the possibility of having onset diabetes. And so we were on the lookout for it. Now, one of the things having a husband with diabetes I was looking for was, oh, she's going to be thirsty. No, that wasn't her case. We did try a medication, quickly took her off of it because it was a weight gainer. But she was hungry a lot more than what was normal. Well, she had a problem in February. I'm not going to go into detail, but it was something that the doctor said in the urgent care could be a sign of diabetes. Well, she'd had a Coke probably about 15 to 20 minutes before we entered into the office. Those that don't know, those with autism, sometimes caffeine can help calm them down a little bit, and she was just crawling walls. And I had worked all day. It was 8 o'clock. I was tired. And so I'm almost thankful she did have that, because we went into the office, and at the very end of the visit, the doctor said, "You know what? Can I test her sugar? Because sometimes this can be an indicator of diabetes." Well, they tested her sugar, and he came back to me and said, "Ma'am," and he took me away from, my daughter for a minute. He said, "I'm going to tell you to leave here and go right to the hospital." Her sugar was sitting at 350. By the time we got to the hospital, it had gone to 400. So now, within a matter of minutes, my life was changing, because I was now dealing with a child with autism as well as a child with diabetes. So we went on to the hospital. Hi, Kevin. We went on to the hospital, and hi, John. And we went to the hospital, and we went in. If I had known, I'd have gone right to the hospital that was 5 minutes away, but I chose to go to the hospital. It was 15 minutes away because that's where her doctor had privileges at. And I thought maybe he would come and see her, but he didn't do that. So I wish I'd gone to the one closer to home, but I didn't. And we went there. We had her service dog at that point that we had welcomed in as an autism service dog in 2012 in July. So here we're going in the hospital. They, of course, admitted her. And at 12 o'clock midnight, we're in the room. And I said, "So what is the diagnosis?" And they said, "She has diabetes." And my whole world just came crashing because I'm like, not one more thing for this child. A mother's heart was just grieving for her. And so this was 4 days within the hospital with her. And we had tried to put her in, she went from a public school to a private school to a public school. It was not a good fit. So she was homeschooled at this point. And because the public school wasn't working. So she was schooled at home publicly through the computer. So I went off to work. I went back to work. And it wasn't too shortly after that. And for those that believe whatever they believe, go right ahead. I do believe in God. And I had just said, "Lord, when it's time to leave my place of employment," I was working at a car dealership, you got to tell me. And I got a phone call that day at work, and my daughter was just beside herself. My mother didn't know what to do. And I hung up the phone and I thought, I heard this voice saying, "It's Mary, it's time to leave." I thought, but I can't. I'm the only one working. My husband was on disability. I can't leave. We're about ready to sign a new year lease. I can't leave. I can't walk out. It's time to leave. And so I went into my boss's office as I went back and forth with this in my head for about a half an hour. Because I don't want to leave. And I said to my boss, I have to leave. I'm giving you my notice. Can I please go home? Because I was a mess of tears. Can I go home? I'd worked there for almost 6 years. And was it 6 years? Maybe not 6 years. It may have been. No, it was like 4 or 5 years. And I said, "Can I go home and I'll come back and I'll give you my 2 weeks notice?" Well, she said, "Mary, we know what stress you're underneath. I'm going to accept it right now. You can leave. We'll give you your 2 weeks pay and all that kind of stuff." They were so gracious. And I left and I went home and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then shortly after that, my dad, who had been diagnosed in 2012 with dementia, but it didn't really sink in for me until 2013. He had to have rotator cuff surgery because he had sprayed lawns for years. He owned his own business in pest control. His motto was, "There's no good bug but a dead bug." That was his motto. And I've talked about him on the boat. Hi, Rio. I've talked about him on the boat. And so we ended up having to go have him for rotator cuff surgery. Well, it didn't take because it was too far gone. So he had to very abruptly stop working because he no longer could drag the hose to be able to spray the lawns. And he was having issues anyway at that point. So now that happened. Well, there was a place, we lived in a fourplex, okay? And there was a place next door to us that was up for sale and been in and out in the market for about 2 years. And they had taken it off the market, and we'd gone to the pool. We had a pool in our community, and it was coming up. Hi, Regina. I was coming up, and I went into the pool area, I left the pool area and was walking home with my daughter. And there was the lady who was the realtor for this place and was a good friend of the person that owned it. And I said, "Just wondering, is that place still for sale?" And she said, "Well, we've taken it off the market. Here's my card. Would you like to come in and look at it?" And I said, "Sure." It was just opposite of what my place was. So I went in and we looked at it. And so I took her card and I went home, and my mom and I started talking. Well, my grandmother lived about 15, 20 minutes from where I lived, and my mom was like 5 minutes from where I was. And we talked about her possibly moving into this place and selling her home because her home was, quite big. And she came to it. She didn't like it. My uncle didn't like it. And so my mom said to her, "Listen, Mom, if you don't want it, I want to think about moving in there." It was probably the best decision my mother made. Well, we moved in. We put her house up for sale, the one that she had had for almost 30 years. I grew up in. My daughter had somewhat grown up in. And we went to sell it. And we did. and we packed up all her stuff, and I'm telling you, I was very glad at that point that I walked away from my job, because there was no way that I could have done what I did. All of the things that happened within 2013, I would have had to take a family leave act. So we packed up her house emotionally. It was an emotional move. We got rid of furniture we didn't need anymore, and all of the process, and we moved her and packed everything up. There was a little delay in the house, so she had to come live with me for about 2 weeks because her house closed before the other one got all finished up with the paperwork. Well, in the process, mind you, the house, I'm not a yellow person. I do not, my mother used a lot of yellow. I was a 70s baby, and she used a lot of yellow. And so I was not too much in the yellow bit, but that house had a lot of yellow in it and a lot of, green and stuff. And so I said to my mom, listen, why don't we go ahead and paint prior to you moving in? And we could not afford at that point to hire anybody to paint, and we couldn't afford the paint. And I said, let me get to work. So I ended up actually getting a local Home Depot, Lowe's, to donate the paint that was needed because my dad served in the military. And I called the Naval Recruiting Office, and they actually allowed me, or not allowed me, but they got, I think, 10 or 12 gentlemen to come on a day. And I had 2 people in this 2-bedroom, 2-bath, a little condo, all in different rooms painting. It was about 2 years later, my mom says, Mary, I'm so glad that you chose to paint before we moved in, because it would have never happened afterwards. So after we got them moved in and settled, and we dealt with all of that change and all of that stuff happening, right? You know what? When I thought, Lord, I hope this is it. I'm done. I'm cooked. I've had it. No more. My uncle had postponed knee replacement surgery, and he had been an alcoholic for years prior. I did tell my story about what happened with my uncle and I on Surviving Together. So I suggest to go over that channel and go take a look at that. And so he had been abusive to drugs and alcohol and for years, and he had to go have a knee replacement surgery. So this is August by this point. And when you think to yourself, it can't get any worse, sometimes it does. And he went in for knee replacement surgery, and he was fine for a couple days, and then he aspirated into his lungs and winded up in ICU, and 2 weeks later passed away. So now we're dealing with a situation of grieving over a loved one. And I can tell you, it was horrible to watch my 90-some-year-old grandmother grieve over her son. Oh, why couldn't I have gone? Why couldn't he have gone? Stayed here, and I could have left. I've lived a long life. He could have stayed here. And she couldn't even handle having any kind of memorial service. There was no funeral. There was no anything, which left us with not really closure until she passed away. And it was awful funny that a year later, in 2014, my grandmother that came in and said, I don't want to live in this place, ended up living at the same home that she didn't want to go live in. But what was amazing about all that, and on top of it, my dad's dementia really hit. I got to see it because I was next door, so I could go back and forth pretty easily and make sure he was taken care of, and he was checked, and everything was fine. And he was not to a degree where he couldn't be left alone. He could. I remember coming in at one point, and he was making all this upset about these cords. I said, Dad, what's the matter? And he said, these cords and so-and-so. And she came in when she messed with him. He was really angry about these cords. And supposedly somebody came in and messed with the cords. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is real. And I do also believe that was the year I was also diagnosed with fibromyalgia, for sure. So all of these things were compounded in about a 6-month period. And I appreciate that extra, and so for the loss. It was a loss. I can tell you that what happened between my uncle and I, it wasn't terrible, but it really made for a divide in our relationship. And so when he left this world, um, I, I had forgiven him at that point, but our relationship never really got back to any kind of where it had been before all of it happened. So it was hard for me to see my grandmother. I think that was more painful, to watch her lose her son and still be here, and for my mother to lose a brother. And, you've got the fact that she had just moved in June. Her husband was, having issues with the dementia. Her brother's passed away. It was just all of this. And now my uncle had become a huge, a year of stressors in your life. Absolutely. My uncle had become a help to my grandmother. So my grandmother, at least when my mother wasn't there taking her to the doctor because he didn't drive, or doing this or doing that, my grandmother had somebody there in the house. Well, when he passed away, there was nobody. So she had to go check and call, and she had to make sure that he was okay. And I remember after, he passed away, my mother stayed over there for a couple of weeks just to help my grandmother. And there was just all of this that was happening. And it was a lot of stuff that just really, really hit the fan. Um, and hi, Lydia. And it was a lot. It was a lot all at once, to have to go through this. And Extra Chris says, yes, it is. My grandmother went in, or grandfather went in for knee surgery, and they didn't even notice that he had a stroke when he was fine in pre-op. Yeah, my uncle didn't have a stroke. He aspirated, and then it just went downhill from there. There was just no recovering. So I did a little thing, and I put it in the description of this video, dealing with hard times. Boy, that was my 2013 is a 4-letter word in our house. It's like, please don't, because it was just so much. Feel better, Lydia. There was so much stuff, one after another, after another, after another. I can tell you, and I forgot to add it to this video. I will tell you that there was some place that I went to, and it was called her name, and I found her on Facebook. And I have been to several of her shows. I have met her in person. She has since passed away, her and her husband. And I will tell you, and I'm going to put it in my chat on my channel. Jeannie Robertson was somebody that I found that I would turn on one of her stories. And I don't care if I heard it 10 times already. I put it on almost every day. It was funny. It distracted me from what was going on in my world, because I was in so much. It was just so much. And I would go to that channel, and it was on YouTube, and I would listen to her stories, and it got me through. I may not be laughing. I oftentimes didn't, but it was just hearing something funny and hearing something that she does. It was clean, everyday life stuff, and it would get me laughing at a time when I really didn't want to laugh. When you're thinking about a child being diagnosed with diabetes, understand the upheaval it does for the child as well as for the parent. I had to count carbs for her. She was only about 13 years old. I had to count carbs. I had to give her injections. She had to learn to give injections to herself at school. Eventually, when she went to school, I had to wake up at 2:30, probably for the first month or two, to make sure her sugar in the middle of the night didn't drop or didn't rise. And if it rose, then do I need to call and make sure I can give her more insulin? And then if she didn't go down, we have to go to the hospital. So all of those things came into play. So it was a lot more than just she's got diabetes. Your whole world changes. You have to count the carbs. She has to have a midnight snack. It has to be about this many carbs. It was a lot, believe me, on top of everything else that hit the fan. So coping tools. And this came from the Mental Health of America, which I thought was very fitting this month. People who spend time writing about difficult times in the event have better health and less depression. What do we talk about on the boat? Journaling. Now, for those like me that my hands can crochet for long periods of time but cannot write, we have the tools. Set up an email. It doesn't have to be a fancy email. Only if you want to know, um, you know, want to know exactly, you don't share it with anybody. You're the one that knows the password. Set up an email. You can type it. You can voice record it into the email now. You don't have, and yes, Zola, it was very stressful. You don't have to even type it. You can just voice record it. It doesn't have to make much sense. It can sit there. Hi, Switzerland. She can sit there and say, and journaling is a great resource. You can sit there and say, I went to the grocery store. I did this. I did this. Eventually, it's going to trigger whatever's going on. It's a journal for you. If you can't write, then go ahead and do something. Type it, send it in an email, voice record it, and just send it off. But journaling is one of the things that we at the Lifeboat talk about, and it's something that even mental health says is a good thing. People facing stress felt less depressed after problem solving. So here's where connection comes in play. Oftentimes, when we are in the midst of a problem, if I take my glasses off, everything's fuzzy. When you are going through an emotional thing, this is where connections and friendships come into play, because sometimes you can't see it clearly. You need a friend to step in or a counselor to put the glasses on and show you what you can't see. And if any place, this is the place, the Lifeboat, to dump. Goodness, we got to have a place to dump, y'all. You don't ever feel guilty about coming into my chat or coming into the Lifeboat and sitting there going, I don't want to bring anybody down. I don't want to dump on anybody. Please, if you've got a dump, if you've had a really terrible day or a terrible month, I'm telling you, if I'd had the Lifeboat back in 2013, I would have been dumping, because I would have needed someplace to go to. I was just like one thing after another after another. How many more hits can I do? So sometimes problem solving we can do in the midst of a situation, and sometimes we can't. And that's where connection, that's where finding a counselor that you can go talk to is very, very helpful in helping with that. People who often focus on the positive in their lives are less upset by difficult memories. That is true. But if you were going through what I went through in 2013, I don't think there was one thing, except for the fact that that paint was given to us, and we had those wonderful men from the Navy recruiting office that came and assisted my dad and honored a fellow Navy man. I think that was probably one of the highlights of that year. And I think even in 2013, we winded up sick for Christmas. I mean, it was just like, we were like, out the door, don't want to deal with it. We were pooped. It was pretty upsetting. And they're saying ways to deal with it better. Write it out, right? Well, that's one thing that we talk about on the journaling. Don't worry about your grammar. Don't worry about anything. It's just for you. You just do it. You may want to set some time aside for it. Sometimes if we don't plan things out, and sometimes it does need to be planned. If you need to run, love you, Kristen, go have good therapy, good mental health. If you need to set a time in your schedule in the day to make sure it happens, but sometimes in the middle of the day, if something's bugging you, go to your journal, go to your email, do something in order to get it from here and out. Stick with it. Oh, that's a good one. We think about it when I have had this goal in my life and I'm going to continue it. I'm really working on getting water in me. I just get busy with crocheting or I get busy with stuff and I forget to add the water. So I've gotten these bottles recently to say, I'm really focusing on really drinking out of these bottles because I'm going, oh, I've only really had, I need to have the whole thing at the end of the day. But sticking with it and making it become a habit and not adding too many things on, well, I can do this. Well, then I can go for a walk for 10 to 15 minutes a day. Well, then I can, no, until I get this water down where it's consistent, I'm not adding anything else. So sometimes if we're trying to just do the one, if you're just saying, listen, I'm going to just do the one, just going to start the journaling and that's it, then just add that as something additional in your life. Don't try to throw in all of these other things at once, because then that gets lost. If I start focusing on too many things, I'm never going to get this down. I've got to get this down, and you got to put the tools in your toolbox so you can. If all the water that I'm supposed to drink is in here per day, I'm going to drink it. And I'm going to work to drink it more than if it's in a cup. And I'm thinking, how many cups of water did I have today? Not realizing I haven't had enough. Tackle your problems. And sometimes that's really hard to do when you're in the midst of it. Write down the problems. Make a list of what's going on. On paper, sometimes they're better than swirling in our head. List as many solutions as possible. And again, this is where connection runs in. If you maybe start listing all of the things, have a friend sit there and say, listen, I need those glasses on because right now everything is fuzzy to me. Can you put the glasses on? Now, I can say in 2013, I don't think there would have been a solution for anything. Christina had diabetes. My dad had dementia. His rotator cuff couldn't be fixed. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. My parents had to move. The solution that came up was the paint. That was one paint. And my mother later said, oh, thank God we did it then and not waited because it would have never happened. My uncle passing, there was no solution for that. But this is where it's not necessarily a problem, but a difficult moment. And that's where you can sit there having those 5 people, having those friends that you can go running to when things are difficult. Accepting responsibility with good solution. Researchers show searching for the perfect option breeds disappointment. Things cannot be perfect. They can't. They can't be perfect. Oops. Well, we went the whole lights out. They can't be perfect. And so we have to be able to, I'm going to stop camera for a second. I'm still here, y'all. Give me a minute. It's like this. We don't have a perfect solution. We just do the best with what we have, right? So give me a minute because my lights went out. Okay, I'm back. But isn't that par for the course? I mean, think about it. I was just talking about perfect. What I have set up right now, it's not perfect. It's ring lights plugged into a cord. And every once in a while I hit them, but it works. And every time I have to say, oops. So don't always look for the perfect solution. Sometimes there's not. There's not going to be the perfect solution. There is no perfect solution. Having my mother next door to me was a good solution. Was it perfect? No, but it worked. And I'll tell you why it worked. Because when my dad got worse and we could have the adults, the aides come in the home, and when they weren't there in time, she would call me up on the phone and go, Mary, I need you to go to the, I need you to go out because your dad's here and the bus is here and there's no aid here. So that was a real helpful thing. I don't think she would have been able to work as long as she could have if it hadn't been for me being next door. So don't always look for the perfect solution. Look for the solution that works best for you. Once you pick a solution, break them into responsible chunks and make them a concrete plan. You may set yourself some specific deadlines. But if you can't, don't sit there set deadlines. It took my daughter a year, and I'll never forget the phone call where she just came home from school just weeping on the phone with me because she realized that her uncle was no longer here. And it finally hit her a year later. So sometimes we can't put a deadline on grief. Sometimes there's certain things that we look at and we go, oh my goodness, that reminds me of that person. So, if you can, sometimes you need to break problems into smaller problems to be able to deal with them in a healthy manner. Don't get discouraged. Oh, that's so hard. Isn't that hard? I know for myself in 2013, I was like, not one more thing. And whenever I said that, Murphy's Law would always come into play and go, here's another something or other. Please, no more. I'm tired. I can't take anymore. And sometimes we have to, we have those things that just pile on top of each other. And that is where this and the lifeboat, all the other ripples that come into play are so important, because you have a place that you can come when life hits you one after another after another. And it can just be that one thing that can throw you off. And it can be very discouraging. And I think that we need to realize sometimes we don't need to necessarily sit here and go, you know what? It's discouraging for me to deal with. It's discouraging. So I'm just going to give up. Sometimes we have to realize that life is going to be discouraging. Life is going to be frustrating. Situations are going to be discouraging. Situations are going to be tiring. But we have to have those connection points, all Hymus Dragon, all put into place when these things in life come into play. Shifting your thinking. It's important to shift your mind away from the negative thoughts or excess worries. Those are really hard to do. I remember sitting going, how am I going to pay rent? I have just signed a year lease and I've walked away from my job. How am I going to pay the rent? And I literally had to walk on faith. God knew, and for those that believe other things, it's fine. He knew what I was going to need and what was going to happen in my life. What I didn't realize what was going to happen, and I was going to have to be prepared to be there in a way that if I was working, I don't think I could have gotten through 2013. I'd have been way too tired. So ask yourself, is it realistic to worry? Our imaginations can take situations that may never develop. Sometimes worrying about a situation can sometimes be overwhelming. Sometimes we're dealing with things minute, second, hour, day by day. You can't sit here and worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. You have to worry about or focus on what's happening today. And whatever situation you're in there, doesn't mean that you don't take action upon it if you need to. Like, we could have sat on the fact that, I had to take action when I was told my daughter had diabetes. I couldn't just sit there and go, oh, well, let the chips will fall where they may. No, I had to take the action. Was I worried as a mom? Oh, absolutely. Did I sleep very well? Not at all. My phone had to go off at 2:30, 3 o'clock. I had to walk through there, wake myself up, go test her sugar, make sure it was in the normal level, walk myself back, and try to go back to sleep. And then the alarm was going off at 6 o'clock in the morning. Time for work. And I'd wondered why I'd sit there and work going, because I was exhausted. Thankfully, I didn't have to do that too long where I had to work and do all that. Setting aside a worry time a day. I think that's kind of interesting. When in negative thoughts intrudes and tell yourself to wait until a set time, you may feel better then. Here's where the trunk comes into play, y'all. You have the right to tell your emotions and issues. I'm opening the trunk of whatever car you want to pick. I'm going to open it. You are going in there. I'm going to lock the key, and I'm not opening it till I can deal with it. I had to do that recently. I had a situation last Monday. Guess what? It went in the trunk for a week. I did not act on it, and I didn't do it. I thought about it. I put it aside, and every time I brought it up, I got irritated and anxious. And nope, back in the trunk yet. And it wasn't until the following Monday where I messaged somebody and I said to them this about, it was a counselor, and this is what we're going to do moving forward. And so I literally wasn't ready for a week. And it went in the trunk, and it stayed right in the trunk, and that's exactly where it stayed until I was ready to bring it back out again. So you have the permission to open the trunk of a car and throw them in there and lock it up. And until you're in front of a friend, a trusted friend, or a counselor, you have the permission to get those keys out and unlock it. And you also have the permission that if you unlock it and start taking stuff out of the trunk and unloading it, and it's too much, you have the permission to put it back till you're ready. So absolutely. Focus on the good aspects of your life. I can look at 2013 and think, that was a horrible year. However, I had my daughter. She was alive. She was safe. I had my family. We all pulled together during a very, very difficult time. And I can honestly say that out of that whole year, I can look at the family and our church family that came into play, helping us through that very, very difficult time. So have those connection points in place. Have some place here. Hi, Ellen. Have some place here. Have the places too that you can that you can be a part of and assist in the sense of it, and have those places here and locally. Maybe a local, group at a YMCA, or a local group that you can be involved in, a church group if that's where you feel that you need to be, or something that you can have those people both here and locally that are there by your side to assist. Look at tough times as opportunity to learn, grow, and improve your situation. Maybe you've seen how support your friends are, or you learned how strong you can be during tough times. Oh, it absolutely made me stronger. 100% made me stronger. And I was able to look back at my friends, little friends that I had, and my family, and just thank the Lord for all of them being in place during every time. And I look back saying, thank you that I walked away from my job. As scary as that was, I can look back going, thank you that I did not have my job to sit there and have to deal with on top of all of these other things. Get support. Sometimes the basic help can make a difference. Ask someone to give you a hand with any pressing task. If you're overextended, you can get some quiet time. I know when we had to, get my mom's house packed all up, we asked our church to come in and just help us pack because we were so tired. I also had respite care for my daughter, which was free in our county. And that was a huge help because I could have them at my house to do respite care. It was too emotional for her to go over. We went over and had one weekend over at my parents' house, and that was it. And we walked away with everything in place, set as it was, that she remembered it. And then after that, we started taking things down and started packing things up. But we didn't do that until after she had that weekend. And then after that, it was on we took care of everything. And I had respite care so that I could go over to my mom's house and help where I can. And we also had friends. We had people from our church to come and play and assist. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. No one knows everything. Absolutely. If you think you know everything, you're wrong. We've all heard the saying, we don't stop learning until we're in the ground, right? Well, we have to ask for help, and we have to ask for advice. And sometimes people can look at a situation, like I said, with the glasses off or on, in a way we can't see it because everything's fuzzy. So don't be afraid to ask for help and get emotional support. Crying, sharing your frustrations, or otherwise venting can release tension, relieve stress, or help you move on. Consider getting help and counseling. Very, very simple article that I put together, or that I found. I think has just some really good bullet points. And they said 10 tools for resiliency. Connect with others. That's one of the top ones. Boy, we do that a lot here. We do that on the lifeboat too as well. We connect. It literally, since December, has been something that has been life-changing for me. Stay positive. That's really, really hard to do. But that's where looking at like something like Jeannie Robertson and going on to her channel and listening to one of her stories can be so helpful. Because when we can't be positive, sometimes we just need those funny moments that we can kind of just take us away from our world that is kind of just piling one after another. And we can go laugh or just chuckle a little bit or smile. And sometimes we need, all right, Ro, sometimes we need to have someone else come in our life that's going to make us laugh and be the positive one. Because sometimes when you're going through that, boy, or not, you can't be positive. Get physical activity. Depending what you do, go for a walk. It does not have to be, it can be a simple, lazy walk someplace. Go to a park. We have lovely parks here in Ohio, and just go for a park. It doesn't have to be anything. Maybe you take a lunch with you and sit down and go sit by the lake and just have that moment. And sometimes I know down in Florida, the place that we lived had a pool. So I would often go in the pool. It was a great way to just kind of relax and get some physical activity, but I wasn't pushing myself. And sometimes I was just too tired. Helping others. I think if that's anything that the lifeboat has taught us, sometimes when somebody comes into the chat and they're really having a difficult time, people in the chat will come and help them. They will lift them up. And that is one benefit to having the lifeboat and having channels like this and having the ripples. We're here to lift each other up. And sometimes when we help somebody else, when we're even going through a very difficult time, it helps us. It takes our mind off our problem for a second or a moment or an hour while we go assist somebody else that can help. Get enough sleep. Oh boy. I had to purposely plan for sleep. That's where respite came in, because at times I would have them come in and they would sit there going, oh, well, you can go out to the store or go here and there. I'm like, no, I want to go to bed. I planned for sleep. And I planned for it because I needed to put in extra sleep for me because I wasn't getting it. And so I had to plan for naps. I had to plan for sleep. So make sure, even if you're not going to sleep in a deep sleep, but just closing your eyes, maybe putting an eye mask over your eyes, doing something if you need an hour just to have quiet. Plan for that. Find things that you can have, hobbies that you can find joy and satisfaction in. You all know crochet is one of them. Even in the difficult times in my fibromyalgia days, I lean on this a lot. I also lean on connection. So find the things that will find you joy and satisfaction. I needed a sip of water. Um, improved people. That's wrong thing. Sorry. Eating well. When we're underneath a tremendous amount of stress, we often do not eat well. So, eating well can be a tremendous thing in, oh, well, I'm thankful, Kim. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Um, but, eating well, we need to sometimes plan to eat well. You can go to Sam's Club and get a rotisserie chicken for $4.98. So sometimes we need to go ahead and plan for eating well. Going and stopping by and getting a Big Mac every day because we're too tired doesn't always be well for our intake. It make you feel pretty lousy, probably about the fourth or fifth day in. So sometimes we have to plan to eat well. Now there is a local, and I will put it on my side of the chat. I'm actually going to start adding it into um, my description, is a place called Lasagna Love. And there's some place that will bring you a lasagna if you need it. Maybe you're taking care of someone. We've put in a request for it, but we have a small town, and they haven't gotten anybody yet to do it for us. But, they did it for my aunt. I got her signed up for it, and they brought her a lasagna. She was dealing with stage 4 liver and lung cancer. And she said, Christmas Eve, I had a lasagna in my refrigerator. So that's a place to go to. Maybe if you need a meal once a month, you need assistance. Having a lasagna already cooked and prepared and done for you is really helpful. If you're somebody that has the financial resources, maybe go ahead and go to Sam's Club pickup. I've done it. We had a friend of ours move and was going through a difficult time. I picked up several $4.98 rotisserie chickens and dropped them off at at her house and said, "Here you go." And she said, "My chicken delivery." So that's a real great one. If you have a neighbor that is really struggling, they've been through a really financial thing, bring them 2 rotisserie chickens. You can make chicken salad with them. They can have them for dinner. That's a great way and a way of helping and assisting somebody else. So look for those things, but plan to eat well. It does not have to be extensive. There's nothing wrong with the frozen vegetables, y'all. We can go to Sam's Club or Walmart. They have great frozen vegetables that you can just throw in the microwave. So if you can't do all that, get things like the mashed potatoes from Sam's Club or the Bob Evans ones, and get the frozen vegetables. There's nothing wrong with having those on hand. We have a deep freeze. I love my deep freeze, and I put things in it that when I'm tired could be easily heated up by even my husband or my mom. When I'm having a difficult day, there's things that we can just throw in the oven and he can eat up when I can't do anything. And that's a lot of times. So my mom takes over a lot of the cooking. So that's where asking for help comes into play. Take care of yourself spiritually. Whatever you believe, make sure you're feeding yourself spiritually. Make sure you're having your time of being able to take a step back and be able to quiet your mind, and quiet your spirit and feed yourself. And take the time for that. And it's really hard to do that. If you're caretaking for someone, no matter the size, whether they're small or big, I really suggest looking for respite care in your area and finding out if your insurance covers it or if it's available to you for free, because respite care is a great resource for you as a parent or someone caretaking for somebody or a parent or so forth, that you can have as assistance to be able to deal with things. And the last thing is, make sure you don't eliminate the fact that I think sometimes in life we're like, oh, we don't need anybody. We're fine. Listen, there are traumas that you've been through your life. Hi, T. There's traumas that you've been through in your life that we love our friends and they're great, but there's traumas that you've been through your life that you really need to go seek counseling to be able to discuss. They know how to break those down. They know they're to help you with those. That's what the lifeboat is to do. If you're dealing with a drug or alcohol problem and you're finally realizing that, you know what, that a bottle is not your friend, the drugs aren't your friend, food isn't your friend. That's what the lifeboat is here for. If you're dealing with a drug and alcohol problem, please don't stop cold turkey. It really can be life threatening. Get a hold of Captain Calhoun, and they can assist with possibly medically needed treatment. That's what we're here for. We're here to get through this thing that we call life. We're here to get through the years and the days and the months like my 2013. I can look back at it going, I made it through. I don't quite know how I did, but I can sit here telling you all that my 2013 would have been a heck of a lot better if I had had this support group. Just in the brief time that it's really impacted my life since December of last year, I can say, man, I truly, honestly wish that I had had it, because it did make a difference. Well, Regina, this is something that I did and certainly wasn't perfect, but you're getting floppy. This is what we call floppy. I've got to crochet an anchor on here, but this is why we call it floppy. I tried. I've got some stuffing to put in it to hopefully make it from not flopping down, but here's floppy for you. Good job. Good job. Everybody likes floppy. I've certainly tried. He wasn't perfect, but here's floppy for you. Congratulations, being sober for 20 years. And to me, whether you've been sober for 1 day or 20 years, whatever the time you are, you should be proud that you're not using whatever your substance was as your friend. I still struggle with that. And I think I'll struggle with the rest of it for the rest of my life, because I tend to sit there and go to food, because food, floppy is cute. Everybody loves floppy. We've had to keep floppy. I'm going to try to stuff it with something else that doesn't make it so floppy, but I'm going to put an anchor on it. But, the thing is that I still struggle with it. And I will have a topic on here too about food. Food was my friend. Food is still somewhat, or I think, oh, yep, them chocolate, whatever, sounds good. That's why we don't keep stuff like that in my house. If I had mint chocolate chip ice cream in the refrigerator, it'd be called freezer. It'd be calling my name. We don't keep it. So it's not the solution or the answer. I can tell you, I probably would have survived 2013, probably went to food a little bit more than I would have liked to admit, because I didn't have this support. And this is something that I've said often. This is a quote I found, and I love it. A disco ball is hundreds of pieces of broken glass, but together to make a magical ball of light. You aren't broken, you're a disco ball. And to me, that's why I chose my group as the Lighthouse Beacons, because I want everybody to be a beacon of light to each other. We can be a beacon of light to the world, broken pieces and all. None of us are perfect. You may have a year like 2013 where one thing came after another, and you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And 2013 for me was just the start of watching my dad decline. It was the start of the road to dementia that just was like, there wasn't light when it came to that. There was other lights that went on in my life throughout, but that road of dementia, that road of fibromyalgia, and having to learn how to live with this thing called fibromyalgia, the thing that was going to cause pain for the rest of my life. Pain can be exhausting, whether it's an emotional or physical pain. It can be so, so tiring. It's exhausting. There's days where I can see light, and there's days where I'm exhausted. When I had to celebrate my dad's third heavenly birthday, I'm so glad I got to celebrate it here on the lifeboat, but that was a tough day. There wasn't light that day. It was a mixture of clouds and sun. I'm glad that he's not here in pain, but it was a 7-year, long, long haul road to go through. My daughter is now 25. She still sees her mom every once in a while. She's married. She's in a good place, and I'm really glad. But she'll call me up with her struggles and difficulties, and I'll always be a mama. That'll never be taken over. No matter how old she gets, she's still my kiddo. But still, her road and the road of being a parent of a special needs child was really tiring. There was highlights and lowlights and places in the middle. But 2013, I picked that because for me, it was just one thing after another. And I can tell you the thing that would have made the difference. It wouldn't have changed anything that happened in 2013. But my mental well-being would have been a lot better if I had had the ability to have connection like I do now to get through. See, I can look back at 2013 and say, man, I got through it. I'm stronger. I didn't think I could. Sometimes we're in the midst of it. We don't think we can get through it. And here's the other point. If you're someone that is addicted to any form of substance, whether that's alcohol, drugs, or food, whatever it is, oftentimes we don't think we can get through the difficult times without using it, whatever it is for you. I'm here to tell you, you can. But you have to make that decision to say, I'm done with using whatever I'm using that I'm addicted to, and I need help. That word help is a really difficult word because it's scary to think of not having that thing to go running to when life hits you over and over and over again. 2013, I know that I use food as a way of dealing with life. I know I did. I can say that it is a daily challenge for me to say, am I using food? How am I using food to nourish my body? Or am I using it to deal with whatever I'm dealing with? And it has taken me now into my 40s. I'm celebrating my 29th birthday next year or next month. But I keep just saying I'm 29. It works every year. But the thing is, it's taken me until now to realize, you know what? I have to ask myself that question almost every time I'm putting something in my mouth. Mary, are you eating because you want to feed some kind of emotion, or are you eating to nourish your body? How are you using this food? And sometimes I do great, and sometimes I fail miserably. But if I kept a gallon of mint chocolate chip ice cream in my freezer constantly, I would fail every day. So I can't put it in my freezer because it's an automatic fail. If you are dealing with a drug and alcohol substance, do not quit without the help of a doctor. Please do not. It is too dangerous. That's where you can reach out to the lifeboat and they can be here to help you through that. You've got to do it medically treated, whether it's prescription drugs or whatever other drugs it is. You have to do it medically. You have to do it underneath the doctor's supervision. I cannot stress that enough. And I can just tell you, you can get through life without the use of whatever. You have to go through getting off of it underneath medically assisted, under a doctor's supervision and medically assisted. Absolutely. But once you get through that, you can get through it without the need of that. But you can get through it a lot better if you have a place to go to, both here on YouTube, through the Lifeboat, through my channel, through other ripples that are coming up. through counseling, through friends, you can get through it, because that, whatever it is not your friend. The friends here are here. Is it hard? Oh, absolutely, 100%. And I can tell you, in 2013, if I was someone who had an addiction for alcohol, or addiction to drugs, I guarantee you, I probably would have ran, because I didn't want to deal with any of that stuff. Who wants to deal with any of that? I didn't want to deal with it. I know I used food. It was not okay. It wasn't the right way to handle it, but it was the only way I knew how to handle it. It was the only tool in my toolbox to be able to use. It felt good for a moment when my life was spinning out of control. And it wasn't like this one thing happened and then nothing much happened after that. It was one after another, after another, after another. Run to connection. If you are, again, on any kind of drugs or alcohol, please don't stop without a doctor's supervision. It literally it's literally life-threatening. And I don't know if my uncle stopped cold turkey, but I remember him standing in the kitchen cutting some meat, and he was making this awful noise I cannot remember, and he winded up in the hospital very quickly after that. And I don't know if he just decided to stop cold turkey or whether what was going on, but he had to get off of it underneath some medically assisted treatment, because he had been drinking for 30 years, probably longer than that, to cover up pain from his father unaliving himself, pain from the war, from Vietnam, pain from this, pain from that. He used it and abused it. And he's not here because by the time he got to that knee replacement, his body was done. His body was done. He couldn't handle anymore. You know, we are here for each other. We're in one boat. 2013, whatever you're going through. Don't be afraid to come here. This has got to be, my channel is a lighthouse. The boat is a safe harbor for you to come and say, I need to dump. I'm having a really rough time. And it would be nice if our lives were just nice creek, right? Just piddling along and pretty and all that kind of stuff. Not the rapids, right? And not the storms, not the hurricanes, not the... wish it was just all just nice and peaceful. It's not. There are times in our lives where we have a season of storms. And when we have those storms, we need to come running to connection as a way of helping you through them. Connection and seeking counseling. Putting tools in your toolbox so when the storm comes on your shores, you've got places to go. You may say, well, I don't need a journal right now. Try it. Start journaling. Because in a month, you could have a storm just come up and you already have that in place. And then you're going to maybe find out, man, I don't know if I could have gone through that with journaling. You may not have anything in your life right now to really need the boat or my channel. But when the storm hits, you may need to say, oh, thank goodness I have it. You may need to say, I don't need to go see a counselor. I thought I didn't need to either. Past is my past. Why do I need to go through it again? I did, and I still do. Get those things in place. Get them in your toolbox. Maybe it's crochet. Maybe it's diamond painting. Maybe it's woodworking. Maybe it's soap making. Whatever it is that you can find as a hobby to deal with it. And allow yourself to find that trunk. Put the problems in the trunk, lock it, and pull it out when you're ready to deal with it. Whether it's with a friend or with a counselor, you have the permission to do that. So there was my 2013. Quite a year, huh? Probably would have made for a great movie. but it was not someplace I certainly would have liked to be in. But I went through it. I got through it. With the support of my family, with the support of my faith, believe whatever you would like to believe. And I can tell you, if I'd had some place like my channel and the lifeboat, I'd have gotten through it, I think, a lot better mentally. I don't think I realized until probably it was December and even the next year how much 2013 really took the stuffing out of me mentally. I didn't realize how tired I was mentally. And I don't think it was until 2014 when we had to move my grandmother out of her home, the home that she didn't want to leave, to come to the home that she didn't want to move into, but she ended up moving in, which was nice because I could help. And I just remember, at that point in 2014 when a friend we were packing up her home, she just left. We just packed it up, and my mom was taking care of her, so she wasn't there to help me. My husband was, and a friend said something, and I just looked at my husband and I said, "That person can't say that one more time. I can't deal with it." I literally wept in the middle of my grandparents' house because I was so emotionally tired. Y'all, crying is not, I don't care whether you're a man or a woman, crying is nothing to be ashamed of. There is no ugly cry. If you have a friend that you can be with or a friend that you can call and you need to sit there and say, I need to cry, but I don't want to cry by myself, use it. There's nothing wrong with crying. If we weren't supposed to cry, then it would be something that we would have gone through, right? We wouldn't have had the ability to cry if we weren't supposed to. Sure, it was quite a year, but you pulled through. I did. I don't quite know how I did. When our strength is low, sometimes we need to rely on the strength of those around us. I think, T, that is an amazing quote. That's why we have my channel. That's why we have the boat. Because we're not going to do it by ourselves, are we? We're going to do it together. We can. I have a shirt, and I've got to make it. I'm going to make it on my channel, and it says, I can do this. I want to make this shirt that says, we can do this with connection. Amen. Can't we do it with connection? We can do it together. We can grow together. We can learn together. We can be there together. There are friends I have on this channel that have become sisters and brothers to me. And you know what? I don't have sisters and brothers. I was an only kid. But, they have just come beside me in a way that has made me feel like that. Hi, Marissa. Have made me certainly be like that and have that ability and have that. And I'm so grateful. Sometimes if you're an only child where you don't have the ability to have sisters or brothers, or you have not so healthy relationships with your sisters and brothers, and you've got friends that have turned into that, relish those and treasure them. They're there for a reason. And they're loved tremendously. And I'm grateful for them. And I know I can rely on them whenever I need to. So, after this, at 1:40 boat time, 3:40 Central Time, and 4:40 p.m., welcome, Big Joe, 4:40 Eastern Time, will be Carol at Need the Meaning. So she will be the next ripple that will be coming aboard for you all to run to that connection point we're talking about. Have a place to go to so that if you need to just say, I'm having a tough day, I'm having a tough week, I'm having a tough month, that's what we're here for. So she will be on at 1:40 boat time, 3:40 Central Time, and 4:40 Eastern Time. She will be the next ripple that will be simulcasting on her channel and the lifeboat. So thank you all for joining me today down this 2013 year. I can tell you right now, at least I can look at it with a smile. I can tell you I got through it. And I can tell you, if you're going through a difficult time, please run to connection. It truly can be life-changing. And as I say, at every show I always end, stay connected. like I said before, it can be and it will be life-changing if you will just dive on in. Because there's people here that will connect and people that will be here for support and people that will be here to help. Have a great day, you all. Love you all. Boat and my crew as well. I will talk to you all day. Talk to you later. Have a blessed day and stay connected. Bye, everybody.